Cool, cool, cool. Hey, everybody, it's Matt. Wrestling with Whiskey is back. Another edition of Straight Shooting and another precedent here. I think this is the first time I'm having someone on here who I've never spoken to outside of this podcast. I've never met before. So I get the pleasure of doing that here. You can see them all over AEW television, the wrestling lawyer, as well as the entire major figure pod wrestling universe. It's like the MCU, but it's all action figures. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Sterling to the show. Mark, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to drink some whiskey here at 3 p.m. on a Thursday.
Hey, you know how to party for me, baby. When I got really introduced to whiskey, I have a friend who's like a whiskey writer and everything, and he invited me down to Kentucky and to do a podcast with him. And it was like 8 a.m. because they had to work on something later in the afternoon. And it's like, as soon as I came into the house, they started pouring. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, it's a whiskey show. We got to have some whiskey. I'm like, I woke up an hour ago.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, sometimes you just got to do it right.
Well, I got nothing to do until Tuesday. So
okay, you're good. Hell yeah. No. So how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I just got back from Wisconsin this morning.
Right.
It's very hot here. I was just telling you off air. It's very hot in Massachusetts where I live. Tried to get a workout in, almost killed me, but here I am. And actually, I'm happy. This forced me to work out earlier. Usually, when I travel, I put it off. Next thing you know, I'm working out at 10 p.m. But so anyways, I'm ready to rock and have nothing to do but relax for the rest of the day.
Hopefully not too dehydrated from the heat and this
got a big water.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. So it's kind of funny. So I've had Matt and Brian both on the show prior.
Yeah, Brian said he got wasted.
Which I'm like, I send these little, and I'm like, I don't tell anyone to drink the whole thing. I'm like, we're having half-ounce little tasters just to, but whatever. I don't know. That's his problem.
Yeah.
But they had both told me, they're like, thanks for having me on and all this stuff, brother. Honestly, they're like, out of the group of us, if there's anybody you should talk to, it's Mark. So I take it are you a bit of a whiskey fan already?
Well, I am, I guess, a whiskey fan. If I was to choose a booze, it would be whiskey. Okay. But I'm a beer guy, and I had have a beer and wrestling podcast called Off the Hop Rope, and we had it for 3 years, and every week we would pair the perfect beer with the perfect wrestling match. So, and we would put a lot of thought into it. So, the firit's episode, we did. You said you're from Chicago. Or you live in Chicago.
Yep.
So we did Blood of the Unicorn. It was a beer from Chicago. I am forgetting the brewery, and we paired that with Stone Cold versus Bret Hart. Right.
Yes.
So we tried all these different. There's so many different craft beers, and so every week we would taste the beer. We would talk about it. We would watch the match. We would talk about it, and that was the podcast. But I've gotten very busy lately with the pod network, plus, managing my clients on a day-to-day basis. So we had to put the Off the Hop Rope podcast on hiatus. Matt likes to say it's dead. Matt Cardona.
Of course it is.
I love the brand. It will come back when I have some time. Maybe not a week-to-week podcast, but certainly a project of some sort. So anyways, long answer. I am an IPA beer guy,
okay,
but I do like whiskey.
Well, dude, that's a great idea. So we do same kind of thing in the whiskey community. I think pairing, a lot of people do it. I know a guy who pairs whiskey with Debbie, or a Little Debbie snack cakes, you know what I mean? You can find all kinds of stuff, but honestly, that's a cool idea. So you know what? If you want to get it back, if you can find the time, I'm happy to jump. Yes, please. Let's. Well, I can pair a whiskey with it, a shot and a beer with the match that is appropriate and everything. I love that idea. It's very cool.
There's 3 years that if anybody wants to listen to it, if your listeners want to check it out, there's 3 years of Off the Hop Rope up on our feed. You can check that out. Whatever, 150 something matches, 150 different beers.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. Love that idea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, like before we really like get started, so tell me, how did you? I guess I'll start with like, how did you meet Matt and Brian? Where did that all begin?
Well, so I've sort of been in and out of the wrestling business since 1999. I started training when I was 18 in high school, like a senior in high school. But like I said, in and out, I really like was what's wrong with pro wrestling for many years. You know, just one of those guys who didn't try and didn't really put any effort into it. But long story short, I went to grad school and sort of learned the value of hard work. And I decided at age 33 to give it one more shot, but a real shot, to really work hard at it, not take any shortcuts, do everything that I possibly could, use all my strengths to try in wrestling one more time. So that's 2015. I picked the best school that I knew of near me, which was Creative Pro Wrestling, and then quickly developed a relationship with Brian through figures, but also because I was helping. Like I said, I wanted to do everything that I possibly could, work as hard as I possibly could. So I was helping them promote their shows, promote the school, doing commercials for them, helping Brian with anything technically I could. Just trying to help anybody I could in professional wrestling, hoping that someday they would help me, and then it worked out. So that's how.
Fair. Okay. Totally fair. And so like talk about like, obviously major wrestling figure podcast. That's the whole thing. What were you, and I see your collection behind you.
Yeah.
Was that something that totally did exist before kind of hooking up with Brian and them, or did it grow from then on, or was that something that was always around?
Man, well, it did. And I would say like my entire childhood was like action figures, playing with action figures like X-Men and wrestling figures and things like that. So it was a big part of my life. But I sold all my figures after college. I used the profits to go to Europe with my friend. So that was great. But right before I went back to Creative Pro, I started to recollect the Hasbros, those WWF classic Hasbro figures, and that was my first like dive into like adult collecting. And then that actually is what made me sort of start talking to Brian less as like a teacher student and more of like friends. But just like that sort of, yeah, I got this week, or did you see these, and things like that. So I would say when I started editing the podcast 3 years ago, by the way, Monday, as we're recording this on a Thursday, Monday was our 3-year anniversry. Like
really?
To the day. Yeah. Of the first day they recorded. Yes. So everything's been going great. But yeah, so when that first day, I had I'd say like 50% of the Hasbros, and that's it. And I was slowly collecting them and didn't even really care. And now I have complete collections of like Star Wars and the Hasbros and Mattels and our own our own Major Wrestling Figure podcast figures and these NECA Ninja Turtles here, and I've got like this Royal Rumble Super Nintendo game with all the I have so much stuff. My collection has grown, but we need stuff to talk about on the podcast, and it's really fun. And actually the pandemic added to that too. So.
Yeah, I bet. So I mean, classic questions. One, do you know the number of figures you have across all brands and style? Could you even guess?
I could probably guess. Maybe 1,000 or so. I could be 2. I don't know. It could be 2. It's probably at least 1,000. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like the Hasbros are like, there's like 100 of those or 150 of those, and so like 200 Star Wars figures that I have. Yeah. So I would say somewhere around 1,000.
It sounds like at least probably 1,000. If not a little bit more.
For sure.
Most prized one, is there one that's locked up in some airtight glass case that's unbreakable or something?
I don't have anything like Matt and Brian. Like,
okay,
I don't have anything that was for $14,000. I don't have any one of ones. So like a prized figure for me would be something more sentimental. So like, I don't know. Well, I did the Hasbro collection itself. Like if I had to save one thing, it would be the Hasbro collection in itself. But, you know, like I love the fact that I have, you know, my friend that I've trained with, MJF, as a figure.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of fans have made Smart Mark figures. You know,
dude, those fan-made custom figures are wild sometimes.
Oh, unbelievable. We have people in our group that are so talented, like they should be working for, you know, big companies.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's insane. And Matt made, so we did, you familiar with LJN figures? Those are the first.
Of course.
Yeah, the rubber ones.
I actually, so really quick aside.
Yeah.
I had, I did a play here in Chicago right out of college before I really started wrestling. But the reason I did it is because it was about pro wrestling. It's a really great play. It's called The Elaborate Entrance of Chad Deity. And it kind of takes place in this whole like WWE-ish world with like this crazy boss, and there's racism and like socioeconomic issues. It brings all these world issues and kind of throws it into the microcosm of the world of wrestling. It's pretty cool. But the writer, was huge, still friends to this day, huge wrestling fan, got everybody in the cast LJN figures. I don't know. I think they weren't like pristine. They got them at like a used toy shop or something.
Yeah.
But I got a Tito Santana.
Oh, great.
In the purple trunks. And I still regret to this day now. Some point I had it sitting up in my room and it fell over into a candle. And the face got totally charred and like half melted. And I was like, no. But so that was the one LJN I had.
Those things get beat up pretty easily. I have a project right here, actually, I'm working on. The guys think that this is sacrilegious, but I just want to do it as a fun thing. So I got a beat up Hogan, right?
Okay.
So it was very cheap, but it's beat up only in that the paint is messed up.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no like bite marks like kids used to bite these. Everything is pristine. So, and I talked to this customizer in the group. He hooked me up with the paint that I need. So, this is pure red and babe blonde. Okay. So you give this a fig bath, you get rid of all the scuffs and get it down to like the skin tone, and then you can paint over the missing paint, and then I'll have a pristine Hogan. Obviously, I can't say that this is like a mint Hogan. It is a fix up, but I figured it would be a fun little project. I just haven't had enough time. That's
pretty cool. So like those are the exact shades used on the original figure?
Supposedly? Yeah, I mean this guy Dave Wheeler, you guys can look him up on Instagram. Is unbelievable customizer, makes the coolest figures. So I knew he would be the guy to go to as far as like what do I do to fix up an LJN, because he's made many custom LJNs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually colorblind completely, so I couldn't do this myself.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Yeah, so he had to just tell me the colors. But so we did a big LJN episode. We do a big history thing every Christmas. We've done one every year so far. And 2 years ago we did an LJN one, and at the end of the episode, Matt surprised us all with our own custom LJN figures made by an old LJN employee. So it's like half official. So I would say that's probably one of my prized figures.
Yeah.
So back to your original question.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
That's freaking that's better. That's better than like official. That's talking. No, you said you didn't have any one of ones.
Yes, that is
do.
A one of one. Yeah. Technically
that's
a custom, but yeah, it's really cool. Brian hated his and put it in the garage. That's all I know. I love mine.
Why did it have like something weird on the face?
Yeah, it kind of. It looked like a little like fantasy like elf or something. It looked like, if anybody's watched Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren, it looked like the character Gwildor. You
very specific reference. Yes, please look that up. Oh my god, that's awesome. That's perfectly fine. I'm a nerd too, as you're about to find out. So let's go ahead and on that note, let's move on. Let's go to our first sample of the day.
Sweet.
Sample A.
Hey, got it.
Yep.
So when you first asked me to do this, I was thinking to myself, man, this guy sends a full bottle of whiskey to everybody.
Oh,
I got these. I'm like, oh, of course not. That's ridiculous.
That would be very, very inefficient and very expensive.
Yeah, right. What do I do? I just unwrap this.
Yeah, unwrap it.
Okay. I should have done this beforehand. My bad.
That's quite all right. So I feel like I tell this on every episode. But yeah, no, it'd be crazy to send full bottles. Plus, then I would run out of everything.
Right.
But originally, I had plastic bottles that I got off Amazon because they were lightweight, they're cheap, and everything. But I didn't realize they were pop top shampoo bottles. I thought they were just regular screw caps. So I had several leak and everything. But Swoggle was one of my first guests, and he refused to get a glass. And he was like, why? These literally pop. And he just squirted it into his mouth.
Oh my God.
To drink it.
What a savage.
Absolutely.
I missed him last night. He came to the show, but
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a 5 a.m. flight. So he wanted to hang out after, but I had like a window to get 3 hours of sleep. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So pour a little bit into this glass?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
And yeah,
all right.
So,
I know. I mean, the beer guy in me wanted to smell it first.
Yes. So like, there's technically, if you really want to get whiskey dorks always look at it. Look at the color. And this really applies more with things like Scotch, because Scotch can vary so much in color depending on the type of barrel it's used. Because Scotch typically doesn't use new barrels. They use old bourbon barrels. They use wine barrels. They bring them into Scotland from all over. So I've seen 20-year-old Scotches that look like motor oil, and I've seen 20-year-old Scotches that look like white wine. So like they vary all the time. Things like and without giving too much away, I have a lot of American whiskey here that I sent you, which typically uses brand new barrels. So as long as it's been in the barrel for more than a year or two, it pretty much all looks dark copper.
Right. They all look the same.
Pretty much.
But again, I'm colorblind, so I wouldn't be able to tell the difference with the color at all.
Touche. Yeah. So the first thing you do, sniff it. I recommend keeping your mouth open.
Oh.
It lets a little bit less of a punch of alcohol.
Oh yeah.
And just
give
me a little bit of what you had. You don't have to be don't feel like you have to be fancy or specific. Just, is it sweet? Is there a ton of alcohol?
I was going to say sweet. It smells sweet. With the mouth closed, very boozy, and then when you open it, you get more of like a sweet smell. Yeah.
That was like my friend, the writer, told me. He was just like, he goes, it'll punch you in the face if you just dig in it, but open your mouth, breathe in through your mouth and nose at the same time. You get a little bit more. Yeah. What anything else? Do you feel like it's a lot of alcohol? Is it light? Is there spice to it? Is it more
hard to describe. I would say it maybe a little light. It doesn't feel like this is gonna kill me.
Well, on that note, go ahead and take just a small sip. This is the first sip of the day too, so just let it just kind of coat your tongue.
Okay.
Because the first one always is just like, whoa, kind of burns, it tingles, it gives you a little bit of that numbing sensation.
Yep.
And any initial tasting thing, did it taste like it smelled? Was it sweet, or was it spicier? Was it rougher? Was it smooth?
I would say tasted exactly like what I expected. So are we trying to guess what these are at the end?
No, because I don't expect you to know, like, oh, that's this brand, this bottle. No.
Got it. Okay.
I eventually just kind of want to see what you pick up. My kind of whole experiment with this is just kind of like, think of it like showing wrestling to non-wrestling fans, right?
Yeah.
They'll sometimes pick up on things that like, oh shoot, I didn't even think about that. Even though they didn't pick up on XYZ, but they pointed that out, and I've never thought about that. Like, I'm in the whiskey bubble, like we're in the wrestling bubble.
Right.
So sometimes I like showing these things to non-traditional, whiskey fans, and it's like, oh shoot, they're actually pretty perceptive.
So my history with whiskey is simply, I'm a fan of Jameson.
Okay.
That if I was to drink something with ice or neat, it would be Jameson. I did have a phase where I drank Wild Turkey neat because Tony Soprano said it once in an episode. He walked up to the bar and said Wild Turkey neat, and I thought that was the coolest thing I ever heard. So for like 3 years, that's what I ordered at the bar. And sometimes people are like, what? Why?
Dude, it depends. Honestly, Wild Turkey 101 is one of my favorite go-to neat pours.
Oh, okay. Well, Tony Soprano's doing something right, I guess.
You damn right, because it's one of the Wild Turkey for anybody who's in this is one of those places that manages to balance this incredible ability to both have something that's kind of affordable
Yep.
and high quality. A lot of the stuff that they put their cheap stuff out, it's super young, it's a little harsh, it's a little this, and then to get the good stuff, it's pretty expensive. But Wild Turkey, like Wild Turkey 101, and I get a little nerdy here.
Yeah, please.
Most cheap bourbons and whiskeys are probably 4 years old or less.
Okay.
They're probably kind of lower proof, stuff like that. But Wild Turkey 101 is a $25 bottle, sometimes less, and it's 101 proof. So if you like a little bit more kick, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to pay more for it. And it's 6 to 8 years old, usually batched in there somewhere, which is a pretty good age for a cheaper bourbon. And it's from a company that's has a super extended long history of making product. I mean, the same family's been making it for the past 50, 60 years, father to son kind of thing. And so it's one of the things everybody looks at is ooh, that's that college shot that knocked me under the table. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it was because it's a super cheap shot. But I'm like, as I get older and more into it, I'm like, oh, just because it's not expensive doesn't mean it's not bad.
Right. And
so sorry, really quick. That's a little bit of the game I'm going to play with you today is there's a cheap bottle in here. There's an expensive bottle. And then there's kind of like a medium-ish bottle. And I'd be curious to see which one you think is which.
Okay. So, and then where does Jameson fall into that?
As far as what?
If Wild Turkey is more on the cheap side, is Jameson in the middle, or is that a cheap?
No, I would say Jameson's the upper end of cheap. Like for me, cheap is probably $30 and under.
Okay.
Then there's $30 to $60 is kind of like the middle, and then if you're getting up into that 75, and then 100 plus is premium.
Okay.
So kind of in my book, $100 plus is premium.
I'm not sure I have ever had something that expensive. Me, growing up, Jameson was the expensive one, and so somebody pulled out Jameson. It was like, whoa, you want us to drink this?
Yeah.
But that's just what was my experience growing up. So in my mind, Jameson was like an expensive thing. We used to mix. The other whiskey was, and I'm sure we didn't even taste the whiskey, was Seagram 7. That's what we would mix shit with. Our Cokes and our whatever sour mix or whatever we would.
You're damn right.
Yeah.
It's a good old 7 and 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Those absolutely.
So this last sip I had on that one was it was easier. It was easier.
Which makes sense. Again, you've kind of already coated your mouth.
Yep.
You've had a little bit. Now you can actually taste it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Any initial thoughts before we move on?
Man, it's tough. I would just say that it tastes very similar to what I'm used to, if that makes any sense. I feel that. Maybe I'm wrong.
All right. No. There is no wrong. You know what I mean? There is. This is totally subjective. It's culinary. It's like eating ice cream. Some people, it's literally flavors of ice cream.
We had a guy on one of the other co-hosts of the Off the Top Rope podcast, Top Shelf Troy Nelson. He's an independent wrestler in the Northeast, also a bartender, so he knows a lot about booze and beer. Mm-hmm. He often would tell me and the other co-host that we were in fact wrong. The other co-host would say like, "Oh, I taste grapefruit," and Troy would be like, "Nope, you don't. Sorry." Anyway,
it's so it's like I have that snob in me. Like I will never tell you you're wrong because everyone experiences and tastes things differently. Yeah. I may in my interior be like laughing about the things you say or like the things people choose to like or to go hunt after in the stores and stuff like that. But no, at the end of the day, you drink what you like. So I'm all for that. But yeah, all right. So try to just keep that in mind as when we move on. Just keep a little bit of those flavors in mind as we go forward. But moving on, the next
B, I'm guessing.
Yes, we will. But before B,
okay.
I did want to know. So Mark Sterling is the wrestling lawyer.
Oh yeah.
And so now, of course, everybody who doesn't know, and so I'm asking for those. Is that a shoot or is that a work?
The most famous professional wrestling lawyer.
That's right. So, law school, did that ever happen for you in the shoot life?
No law school, but I did go to a lot of schooling. I've
Okay.
had a lot of schooling. I have a bachelor's and an MFA. The MFA was a 3-year program.
In what?
In documentary production, actually.
Oh.
So film, and I've been doing film and audio production, for years. And to be honest, I went to college and said to myself, like, how do I work for the WWE? So I was like, I really love the packages they do. If I could like produce packages, that would be like the dream job. So, and then I became a wrestler because I was like, well, if there was a guy who was good at doing packages who didn't wrestle, and there was a guy who knew wrestling and knew how to wrestle and produce packages, they would clearly hire the wrestler.
Yeah.
Little did I realize years later, I want to say this is like 2018. I was like in the final stages of getting a production job with the WWE, very far, had many interviews, and they eventually said no because I was a professional wrestler, because I was wrestling. And when they asked the question is, would you stop? My answer was, if I needed to. So I did not get it. I was very upset about it at the time, but now that entire department was wiped out in the firings, and I am living a dream on TV every week. So blessing in disguise.
Yeah, no kidding. God, I didn't first. Yeah, I didn't know that. So you had like round after round and round interviews. That was the linchpin.
It's so weird because my first interview was when I was at Extra Work.
Okay,
like I was at Extra Work working as a wrestler.
Yeah,
yes, in a suit, and I had an in-person interview. Like somebody was like, "Hey, you should talk to him. He's like producer, or whatever." So I like sat down for a while with the head honcho. So then in my mind, I'm like, well, it's clearly not a problem.
Yeah.
Because they know that I'm a wrestler. But
it didn't come up until
eventually it got to somebody where it did matter.
Wow.
Yeah. Weird thing. Very weird thing. But so the schooling, bachelor's in media, and then went to grad school, MFA in documentary studies and production. But it was really just 3 years of like learning production and nonfiction production, things like that. Yeah.
What was there ever anything, especially if you're going for like documentary and stuff like that, was there ever, I don't know, I know you said like that you working on producing WWE stuff and everything like that, but like was there ever like did you ever want to make a documentary, a film about it? Was there ever anything like that you're like, man, if I could ever make a movie about this?
Yeah. So thing? I mean, I made a couple films when I was in school. I made a film called The Indies about independent professional wrestlers that was in a bunch of film festivals, right at the tail end of my schooling. Do you know Sarat Tan?
Oh yeah, of course.
AKA Kid Magazi. Yeah. So we trained together. We started training together in 1999 in high school. We backyard wrestled together. So we've been friends forever. And he was one of the subjects of the film. So he's in it. This was like around 2011. But also after college, I interned and worked at a production company called Marshall Curry Productions. And it sounds huge, but it was really just Marshall Curry and his wife and a couple other people and me. And he has been nominated for an Oscar 3 times for documentary films. He just won an Oscar for a short film like last year. But I worked on a film called If a Tree Falls, the story of the Earth Liberation Front with him. And that was nominated for an Oscar. And I was with him for, I want to say like 2 years. Wow. And it was a small company learning how to sort of make small budget film. And I owe a lot. And I tweeted this and I reached out to him too, to let him know. I learned so much from him in the idea of just like how to be successful. Watching him every day work so hard on these films, like never stopping. Like I don't know. I would maybe make a film and like shoot something and be like, that was fine, that shot was fine, and put it in. But that's the difference between my crappy film and his Oscar-nominated film. He would never say that's fine. He would do everything that was possible to make every shot in the film perfect. And he never stopped working too. morning until he was forced to stop.
Yeah.
And when you watch that and you see how this successful person, you realize, oh, that's how you do it. You just work really hard. And this was literally like a thing. Like, what if I took that and applied that to the thing that I actually really, really love, which is professional wrestling? And then literally that led me to create a bro.
Yeah.
So
I love hearing stuff like that. It's amazing how like sometimes I feel like without getting too like hokey about it, like just puts things or people or events in your path like that to and it sparks that kind of that shift that you need at the time that you need it. Because I know like talking to my wife and sometimes because she's just kind of coming into her own and everything too, and she often has this idea of like everybody I know like was college and then right out of college went right to the career they were supposed to do, and then they've been and
yeah.
I'm like yeah, but like that's not everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be this linear thing. So many people like you do this for a little bit and then you've been, and then all of a sudden you, like I said, you meet that person, you have that event, whatever it is, and it shoots you off this way and it leads you to paths you never thought were possible. So that's a super cool story to hear.
Yeah, 100%. But also like the film stuff has helped me with everything because I would get booked not because I'm an awesome athlete or amazing professional wrestler, but because I could produce really entertaining promotional videos for myself, for my match, for the promotion. So like I utilized my film experience and audio experience to leverage bookings, which got me to meet more people and advance my wrestling career as well. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway. No, that's fantastic. On that note, let's move on. Let's do sample B.
Yeah. Okay.
Same thing. It's a little pour.
This one smells right off the bat way less pungent.
Okay.
To me.
So same thing. Give it a little mouth open. Give it a little whiff. Anything different? Same.
Maybe not as sweet.
Okay.
I'm not getting that kind of like sweet smell. Yeah, way less boozy.
Fruity at all?
Oh my god, I was just gonna say that. Damn it, you beat me. Fruity. Yeah, I got a little fruit there.
Okay.
Like apple or something. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I will often get like almost like green apple kind of stuff from certain whiskeys. Yeah.
And is it silly to say honey?
No, God, honey is super common.
Okay.
Honey, graham cracker, clove, cinnamon. These are things that I will often get.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah. Take a little sip. Same thing.
So I would say on the tongue, actually sweeter. So it didn't smell sweeter, but it tasted sweeter.
Okay.
To me. A little easier, I feel.
A little lighter.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to ask on the first one too, one of the components of doing like tasting, usually there's the nose, there's the palate. That's just kind of how it initially tastes on your tongue and everything. And then there's the finish. And the finish is usually was kind of how it, after you swallow it, does it linger? Sometimes the flavor can change. Like, as it dries on the roof of your mouth, it can go from really sweet to like bitter apple or cherry or something like that. And sometimes it's literally in and out, what we call a short finish. And sometimes even after you swallow, it's there for 30, 45 seconds, still kind of tingling, lingering. So think about that. Like if it has a long or short finish after you take a sip, does it stay with you and things like that? Does it coat the roof of the mouth or does it kind of just zip down the back of the throat?
I think this one goes pretty fast. There's not much left on the tongue or the top of the mouth, but you can feel the burn at the end in the throat a little bit as it goes down. But yeah, it doesn't linger as much as the first one, I feel.
Okay.
Do you feel the same way or no?
I know. I would generally agree. And
okay.
you don't have to look to me for approval.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Again,
okay.
How I judge you on the inside will never reflect on the outside. I can promise you that.
Okay.
It won't come out too much anyway.
Got it.
No, experience it how you experience it, which is totally fine. Okay, so keep that in mind before we head to the last one. Again, think about the first one, how this one differed, and then we'll go to the last one in just a minute. But before we get to that one, obviously, I want to kind of touch on what you've been doing a lot lately, the biggest spotlight you've had lately, which is AEW. You are out there recruiting clients, working with people and everything. So I guess first of all, how did that kind of whole gig come to be for you?
Well, again, working hard, trying to help anybody that I could in pro wrestling. The mindset was really just like, how can I help? Because, I'm self-aware. Like I said, I'm not very athletic. I'm not the greatest wrestler. So I just needed to do whatever I could and play to my strengths and, help as many people as I possibly could. And one person that I helped out a lot early on, we trained together, we started together, was MJF. I'm pretty sure he was like 3 months in when I came to Creative Pro. And I had been out of wrestling for 7 years at that point. I said I was in and out for a long time. So I would say we were both at kind of like the same level. And we with many others at Cap, Max Caster, Bear Bronson, and some other people, we all sort of came up together. We were in that kind of first class. But I wanted to help everybody, and I helped Max a lot with promos, shooting things, any kind of digital things. He's sort of a caveman too, just like Brian is. Sort of kind of how Matt is. Matt kind of has some technical savvy to him, but anyways, just helping Max for years, and we did an act in CZW together where I was his lawyer, and it was supposed to be just a one-off. I was a wrestler, but I have gray hair, so he brought me in the CZW when CZW was a little more notable as his lawyer, and then we did that act for, I want to say, a year, and it was pretty cool. It was a fun act. It led to a couple cool matches, and then they had a storyline in AEW, and they had a lawyer written in, and Max just said, well, I know the perfect guy. And they were like, well, let's bring him in. So did that. It went well. And then, they had this idea for me. So,
off you go.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's, and you know what? Great lesson on, you put it there. I mean, just try to be freaking cool to everybody. Help everyone you can. And I don't mean it from a like self-serving point of view, but I'm like,
yes,
if you're just a good person or helping out people as you go through life or whatever, it will come back to you in new, various ways.
Yeah.
Like it's never hurts to not be an asshole, ladies and gentlemen. Let's put it that way.
I always say to indie wrestlers, especially starting out in the first couple of years, like, you need to provide value in some way to the shows or people around you. And nobody a year in is providing value really for a promoter. Why is that promoter going to book you if you are a year in? Nobody knows who you are. You're not selling any tickets. So whatever. However, if you are hanging up 3 million posters, or maybe you've produced their commercial, or maybe you've made a bunch of promo videos for them or whatever, then you've provided value. Then you now are owed a spot on the show. And so that was always my mindset. How do I provide value to the people around me or to the shows? And, that would lead me to get booked. And I was right. So,
yeah. Everybody takes bumps. Everybody does drop kicks. But right. Yeah. What are you going to do to help the show and to stand out on your own? 100%.
Exactly. 100%.
So yeah, I mean, being there now, obviously, God, I hope I don't get this right. You've been working with Jade, right?
Jade Cargill. Yep.
Is kind of the primary thing. I mean, as you're there, I mean, do you see, because I actually briefly thought, I'm like, when I was first signed with FCW, I was like, I don't know if they're going to like me as a wrestler, but I love entertaining. So I'm like, maybe I could be a manager.
Yeah.
So I often had thoughts like that.
Yeah.
Do you have, so two things. One, favorite wrestling manager, growing up and stuff like that. Who?
Mm-hmm. Bobby the Brain Heenan, clearly. He's the greatest of all time, I think.
I would say so.
Also locally, some people aren't going to know who he is, but there's an indie manager named Sidney Bacabella, and he was my manager for a couple of years in one promotion. But he's kind of all over the place. He commentates for a promotion called Beyond, and I absolutely love him. And I go to him for advice often. He is so funny. If you follow him on the internet, he is a 2-time former WWF Hall of Famer. That's what he calls himself. But he's great. So Bobby the Brain Heenan and Sidney Bacabella are my favorite managers.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Well, that's perfect, because that's my thing too. So like, you know, Bobby the Brain Heenan he wasn't just one guy. He wasn't like a Paul Heyman. He didn't have one guy at a time. He had a stable of people, right?
Yeah.
So looking around, I got to ask, looking around the AEW locker room,
Yep.
in addition to Jade Cargill, like who are some people you're like, ooh, I could work well with them. Ooh, I could work well with them. Put them under the house of Sterling. So that's question one.
Okay.
Question two, what would you call that stable?
Oh, okay. So, obviously I'm here to help. So anybody who needs help, call 1-347-SMART-40, and I can help you today. So
is that a real number, by the way?
Oh yeah, use that. Yeah, call it. The operators are standing by.
Please do, everybody.
Yes. So Alex Reynolds, good friend of mine. I represented him on the Indies for many years. I think we sort of were a great unit. I would love to work with him. Ethan Page is a good friend of mine. We have bonded over toy hunts all over the country, and I love the way he dresses. So I would love to represent him. Hey, let's shoot for the top. CM Punk, right? Hey, do you need representation? CM, right. I can help you out. Maybe
he's had a couple legal battles.
Yeah, maybe I'll get you a discount on those ice cream bars or something. Yeah. Coupon code of some sort. And then I'm not sure what I would call it. So it's not really about me; it's about them. So it's not my stable. I work for Jade. It's the hashtag Jade brand. So it would probably be more something about them. So let me help them. I'm behind them. I want to prop them up.
Like just off the top of my head. So like the Mafia back in the day was called the Black Hand, right? Like
right.
It was the Black Hand. They were in the neighborhood. They were protecting the neighborhood and stuff, right?
Yep.
What you and it doesn't have to be like the stable name, but like what you do with these numerous people, it's the helping hand.
Oh yes,
you're the helping hand.
Yes,
and you help them get wherever they need to by any means necessary.
Yes, yeah. Hey, whatever it takes. That was the name of our group actually on the Indies. Me and Alex Reynolds and VSK actually we were whatever it takes, because we would do whatever it took to win.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good shit. All right, let's finish it up. Let's go to our last sample. Sample C. Sample C. Let's see how we feel about it.
Aha. Okay. Oh. Whoa.
So immediately I'm going to take it a little bit punchier.
Yeah, that one actually punched. I feel it here in my head.
Yeah. So a little bit more punch of alcohol on that one initially.
Yeah. Man, this one's like more like I feel like I mean I'm probably sounding really stupid, but the difference between like in my mind Jameson is like a smooth whiskey, and then there's like Jack Daniels, which is I know is a different kind of thing, but it's like more hard, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Smooth and hard. So this one's like but I'm getting that fruit and honey.
Okay.
Strong honey.
Honey. This one, I'm looking at it. Yeah, I get honey a lot on this one.
Okay. Let's try it.
Give it a little sip. Give it a light sip.
So like that fruit right away, I think.
Okay.
Definitely stays on the tongue. Oh, and definitely on the top of the mouth too.
Okay. Lingering there a little bit.
Yeah.
Hanging out. Is it smoother, spicier than the other ones?
Spicier, I would say.
Okay.
I thought it would be tougher to drink, but it wasn't too bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take one more sip.
Okay. That one was harder.
Sometimes if it hits the back of the throat too fast and everything, It can be a little rough, but
yeah.
So
Okay.
so think about that. And now, given the three options, A, B, and C,
Yep.
rate them from favorite to least favorite. If gun to your head.
If I'm gonna like drink more,
Like, something
yeah.
that you would enjoy sitting down and drinking neat, maybe with an ice cube. Think of it in the terms like that.
Okay, so B would be my number one.
Okay.
I think A, and then C. That's how I
Okay.
would rank them.
Okay.
None of them super bad. The C was just a little punchier. But yeah, I think B was like nice and smooth and tasty, and I liked the fruity smell.
Okay. Could you venture a guess as to which falls in which price point if you had?
Man, it's tough. Because I'm not sure because I always so to me Jameson is like a smooth whiskey, and I always thought it was like a expensive whiskey. So
Sure.
yeah, so I'm wrong. I'm not sure, but if I had to
Okay.
guess, I think maybe I would just say B is the most expensive, and then A is the least, and maybe C with all the punchy and taste was the middle. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
No, totally fair. And I mean, Jameson is by the way, is a great smooth and everything is a great example. Jameson is an Irish whiskey, which is similar to like a Scotch. Sometimes they're mostly malted barley, and which is a very kind of mild grain. American whiskeys, like a lot of the ones I have here with you, bourbons and ryes and stuff, use it's corn and then rye, which is a very spicy grain when distilled into a spirit and stuff like that. Whereas like malted barley is pretty mild, and you can get some really good flavors out of it, but it is a pretty mild flavor as opposed to like the grains we use in American whiskey.
Right.
But so anyway, let's go ahead and I'm going to first reveal one thing. You got the price points exactly right.
Oh,
yeah.
Hot dog.
You got the price points exactly right. So we'll go from your least favorite to your favorite.
So I will say this. I
Yeah.
mean, my thought process there was simply, if anybody's ever had like a Grey Goose, you know how like easy it is to sort of drink Grey Goose compared to like, even Bacardi or Popoff, or Mr. Boston or whatever. Like Grey Goose is so smooth and enjoyable, right? So for the most expensive, I went with the one that was the smoothest to me.
Yeah.
And then was just venturing the guess on the other two.
Hey, but that's fine. It's just I thought it was pretty cool. You got him exactly right.
Cool.
So we'll start. Yeah. So letter C, and then it was your least favorite. Letter C is a bottle called George Remus bourbon. So this to be fair is a single barrel selection. So stores and restaurants can purchase their own individual barrels from these brands, which make them a little bit more unique than the standard like batched version of it. But this is a high rye bourbon from a company called MGP out of Indiana. They're actually known for some of their really high rye recipes, which makes their bourbon very, very spicy, which a lot of bourbon aficionados stuff really, really like it. They like those spicy kind of layered notes and everything that they get from this. This is, you hit it too. This is the strongest one I gave you. This is 125.7 proof.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is 62.8% alcohol.
Wow.
And, standard Jack Daniels or Jameson is 40%. So this is 20% higher. Actually, 23% higher.
Is it a similar? So when I tasted it, I thought this is very similar to Jack Daniels.
So, I mean, this is way stronger than Jack Daniels.
Way stronger, but it was like, is it a similar flavor profile or am I nuts?
No, it's again, and when you're like me, and I've been in this for years and years and years, and tasting
totally
all these
different
nerdy things, you'll pick out the different. Right now, it could totally seem similar. The mash bills are very different. I will say that. This is like, what is this? 60% corn, 36% rye, and then the rest of it's malted barley. Jack Daniels, I believe, is like 80 something percent corn, a little bit of rye. It's mostly corn. It's very mellow, is kind of the whole point. But this is a high proof, spicy bourbon whiskey.
Got it. Okay.
Letter B,
what's the price of a bottle on that?
Oh yeah, so this one is probably $65.
Middle of the road. Okay.
Kind of like upper middle of the road.
Got it.
So B, your second favorite, but as you correctly picked out, the most expensive is one called Kentucky Owl Confiscated.
This one was my favorite.
Oh, this one, I thought you said A was your favorite.
No, this one was my favorite.
Okay, well, then you pick the fancy one.
Okay,
I'll go to B real quick, or A real quick. No, B. Sorry, this is B. You're right. I messed up the order. So this is B. This was your middle one. This is the cheapest one.
Oh, so I was wrong.
So no, you're wrong on that one. I messed it up in my head. Okay, and that's what did it. So yeah.
So let's slow down here. Yeah. So B is my favorite.
Okay.
It is the cheapest one.
Yes.
And I was wrong because I said B was the most expensive.
Yes.
Oh wow. Yes. I was way off. All right.
Flip up. Yes. So but this is good. And this is also one of the reasons I like doing this show, because showing people, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, especially us, just like in wrestling, you get in this bubble and you see the labels. So like, all right, so we already revealed this is the most expensive one. And like, we know, those of us in the community, we know that brand. We know, like, oh, it's got to be the best. And so like, it's almost like psychosomatic. You make yourself think it's better. But I'm like, if you blind taste these things, sometimes these cheaper options are just as good, if not better, than some of the fancy schmancy options. So yeah, we'll jump to this one. So this was B. This was your favorite. This is a brand called Larceny. It's from a distillery called Heaven Hill out of Kentucky. This is 92 proof. It says it right there. So it's not, you're right. It is a little bit lighter than the other options we've had today. This is also a wheated bourbon. So wheated bourbons, bourbon has to be mostly corn by law, but the other grains in it can be whatever you want. Usually it's rye. It gives it a nice spice. But a long time ago, people started using wheat because wheat is a much softer grain. It's not sweeter in its own right, but it more like since it's really, really not spicy, it gives way for the corn to kind of come through. So it's this kind of light, sweet, mellow taste as opposed to having rye in your whiskey. So yeah,
that is what I liked about it. And I guess that's kind of lame. That's kind of like somebody who doesn't like beer and will like a Bud Light because it doesn't taste like beer.
and it's one of those things, as you get into it or whatever, like you start to appreciate the higher proof stuff and the spicy, the more bold stuff. You want it, you know what I mean? But
yeah, I don't want a light beer anymore. And that's because I want to taste the different hop flavor profiles of the beers, but I think that's like kind of like an acquired taste when you start to sort of understand, and then you 100%. Get what you like. Yeah.
And because it's funny, because despite me, like, for example, this 125 proof, I could drink this like water at this point, right. But I'm like I've never really gotten into beers, and so like I have friggin' the champagne of beers, good old MGD, and then I have like some crazy really cool craft beer, like. Maybe they have some weird flavor in it, but like it's just beer to me. I still just get hoppy beerness, and like so I don't have the subtleties yet for beer.
Right.
But
and I think it's like an acquired taste, and you sort of I don't know. You have to have some really good fresh beers for a while, and then you start to really enjoy it, and then understand. The profiles.
110%.
Similar.
So this is probably less than $25 a bottle. You can usually find this for like $19.99 a bottle.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so then I got it wrong. This one. Oh,
A is the most expensive.
A is the most expensive one.
I'm going to have one more sip of that.
Okay. By all means. So I'll tell a little bit about it. It's Kentucky Owl, which is a brand started by Dixon Dedman, this is actually, so many people fake these stories, but he actually has a real story. Like his great-great-great-grandfather had this brand like 100 years ago. It went defunct in like the 20s. And he brought it back like 7-8 years ago or something. And so we
used to always tell stories of the brewery on the podcast, by the way. It's always funny, ridiculous stories like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's got a story about like, oh, my family goes back 16 generations, man. And it's like, and then you look up the actual like legal history of it. You're like, oh no, this brand died 150 years ago. And you just bought the name 6 years ago. So you could like, it's amazing all the stuff that goes on. But so basically what he did was he wasn't making whiskey right away. So he went and bought a bunch of barrels from different distilleries and he would blend. And so he put together a lot of these really great blends into Kentucky Owl bourbons. and they were very, very limited. They had bourbon and rye in different batches that would come out. They were very, very expensive, very rare. This, when he got acquired by a major company, Stoli, who makes vodka and all this stuff, he got acquired. They wanted to put out something more nationally available. So they put this out. It's called Confiscated. It's got some story about like just before Prohibition, everything was seized by the government. And like this represents that attitude and style and everything like that. But this was this you could find in almost every state. But this is sitting on the shelf at $120 a bottle.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I find it to be a nice whiskey, but like there's no age statement. There's no even like age, like, hey, we use barrels that are 8 to 12 years old, or they don't really give you any info, which bourbon geeks like me, we love info. We love stats. We want to know, give me a mash bill, give me a proof, or we have proof, of course, but give me age ranges, give me where it was distilled, just something, because we like to nerd out over that. And it's very vague, and to charge $120 for a bottle that you don't really have any info on is a little bit of a tough ask. But that said, it's an interesting bottle. But yeah, that is the most expensive one that you had.
Interesting. And I tasted it again. It is pretty good. And maybe I like it more now that I know it's $125.
And that's what it does.
Yeah.
That's what it does. There's so many brands in this business that do that. And it makes a lot of us mad because like people go crazy over certain bottles. And it's like, oh, it's not even that good. But even if I wanted to get one, I can't because of you crazy people. But
right.
So that was the game. Thank you for playing. But before we go ahead and let people know, I mean, what's going on with you personally, the AEW stuff, the major pod network stuff, anything you've got going on, let everybody know.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can follow me at Mark Sterling ESQ on Twitter and Instagram. I post pretty regularly. Our YouTube channel, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. We're almost there. We need like 1,000 more. That's youtube.com/MajorPodNetwork. We're on Twitch, twitch.com/MajorPodNetwork. We go live. We unbox things. Before AEW, I was going live a lot more, but I have some things I got to unbox. So
yeah,
I'll be on there soon. So there's that. And then, the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast every Friday. We drop a new episode. We've never missed a day in 3 years. We're going strong, 2.5 hour each episode. And then we've been doing the new thing is the MC True Long Island Story that me and Matt sort of do a deep dive into the Z True Long Island Story YouTube show that he put out literally to the day 10 years ago. So every week, 10 years to the day, we examine the episode. We talk about the things that were happening behind the scenes, the things that happened on the screen, how they happened. We talk about different people. We talk about Triple H doing weird things to Matt. It's a very fun, snackable podcast. Most episodes are about 30 minutes. You can find that on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Those are the big things going on right now. And then obviously, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on AEW, now every Friday at 10 p.m., every Monday on YouTube, every Tuesday on YouTube. We got a lot of stuff coming on. AEW is great. Hashtag Jade Brand.
There you go.
Is what we're pushing.
Hell yes. Well, Mark, thank you very much for being a part of this episode of Straight Shooting. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you being a good sport and trying some whiskey with me.
This is fun, man. This is like you jump-started my vacation.
Yes.
I'm gonna relax for the next 4 days. So we're starting it off great.
Yeah, work your way through the rest of those samples. Enjoy.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea.
I appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Straight Shooting. Of course, always be expanding your palate. Try things blind. Test yourself to see what you really truly like. And of course, always, always, always be wrestling with whiskey. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.